So this is Ready, Set, Question. We're dedicated to building faith one question at a time. And have you ever wondered what the evidence is for the resurrection of Jesus Christ? Well, could you help me out with some of the evidence?
Yeah, so you want to know the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus? It's actually kind of simple. So let's do this. Let's just take a napkin. Okay, let's draw something out for you here. So the first thing we do is we look and we see something that is regarded as indisputable by almost all scholars today who study the subject, is that Jesus' disciples truly believed that he rose from the dead and had appeared to them. Now, that's not to say that these scholars will acknowledge that he actually did rise and appear to them, but he says they truly believed it. And they base that on, okay, I'm just going to put disciples here, okay, or in plural, D's for disciples. And they believe Jesus appeared to them, rose and appeared to them. How do we know that? Well, there are three lines of evidence. Okay? Number one, they were claiming it, so you got P for Paul. Paul knew the disciples, and his undisputed letters, like 1 Corinthians 15, he mentions how they were claiming Jesus rose and appeared to them, and it says, whether I or they, this is what we preach, and this is what you believe. So you got Paul, you got oral tradition, that would be in things like the oral tradition in 1 Corinthians 15, verses 3 through 7, plus the Acts sermon summaries in Acts chapters 2, 10, 13, 22, 26, and they talk about Jesus rising and appearing to them. And most scholars do believe that that is a summary of the apostolic teaching at that time. So that's oral tradition. And then we've got written reports, like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. We've got things like Clement of Rome, Polycarp, who were the apostolic fathers, came later on. They probably knew Jesus' disciples, Peter and John, respectively. So you got these written works, okay? So you got this acronym POW. That's all we have to do is to say that they were claiming. They were just going around claiming that Jesus rose. Actually, at this point, we don't even have to say they believed it. They were just claiming it. That's something that everybody accepts. I mean, we can prove it because we've got all these sources, and they're first century sources. Now, that leads us to one of two options. Okay. They claim Jesus rose and appeared to them. Well, he either rose or he did not rise. All right. We'll put rise here. So, not rise. So if he didn't rise, then what's going on here? All right. So here we say they were claiming Jesus rose from the dead. He did not rise from the dead, and they knew he rose from the dead. Okay. The other option is that they did not know; they actually believed. So that would mean a hallucination, correct? So you got a hallucination. We'll just put Paul there for it. And the other is, well, they claimed it. He didn't rise, and they knew he didn't rise, so they were lying about it. So if they were lying about it, you know, you've got the fact that they were all willing to suffer for their beliefs. We've got a lot of different sources, and the way I remember these sources is a little thing I created called Lieutenant J. Dopic, and that helps me remember the sources. So you got Lieutenant Luke Tertullian. So Luke tells in the book of Acts about them willing to suffer and die. Tertullian mentions how they suffered and some of them died. J for John. John talks about at the very end, Jesus tells Peter by which kind of death he's going to die. All right. And John's writing this at the end of the first century, so it's already happened that Peter has been executed. And then Dopic, you got Dionysius of Corinth, O for Origen, P for Polycarp, I for Ignatius, and C for Clement of Rome. So you got all these guys that say that these disciples were willing to suffer and willing to die, and some of them actually did die as martyrs. Liars make poor martyrs. So the fact is that this shows that they were sincere about what they believed. They weren't lying. In fact, I don't know of a single skeptical scholar today who would suggest that the disciples were lying. They all think that they truly believed it. So that brings us that if they claim Jesus rose, he did not rise, but they really thought he did. Well, what led them to that? And if he didn't rise, well, that means they must have hallucinated, right? So the problem with that, you've got a number of problems. One would be that the percentage of recipients is too high. So, percentage is too high. So, reports that have been done on hallucinations research over the last century or so suggest that the group most likely to experience a hallucination are senior adults who are grieving the loss of a loved one, like a spouse. Only 7% of them, on average, experience a visual hallucination of that loved one. And yet, our earliest report said 100% of the disciples did. He appeared to the 12. He appeared to all the apostles. Okay, so the percentage of recipients is too high. Second, you got group. He appeared to groups. He appeared to 12, to more than 500, to all the apostles. Another thing that research over the past century has revealed is that hallucinations are private occurrences in the mind of an individual. They have no external reference. To that extent, they're like dreams. I can't wake up my wife in the middle of the night and say, honey, I'm having a dream, I'm in Maui, go back to sleep, join me in my dream, and let's have a free vacation. Okay? Can't do it. So, if it appeared to group, it wasn't a hallucination. Could have been an illusion, I guess you could say. But really, I mean, it's not like looking at a mirror building and seeing this figure of Mary or something like that. They're thinking Jesus rose and appeared to them and talked to them and all that. And the third problem is you got Paul. Paul wasn't grieving Jesus' death. He was glad Jesus was dead, and he thought Jesus was a failed prophet and a false Messiah. So Jesus would have been the last person in the world Paul would have expected to see or wanted to see. So it wasn't a hallucination. I guess you could say, so, all right, so that, he didn't rise? Well, I guess you could also put another one here, and you could say they used it as a metaphor. He didn't rise, but they used it as a metaphor to say, well, his teachings continue today. But then you got a problem because Paul, he doesn't care about a metaphor there. Again, he thought Jesus was a false prophet. And the rest of them are saying Jesus actually rose and appeared to them. It wouldn't explain why they truly believed he had risen and appeared to them. They actually believed he rose. So that doesn't work. So then that leaves us with another option here. They claimed he rose, and he actually rose. Okay, but now we have two options. The first option is he did not die. Okay, so he didn't die. And the other is he did die and he rose. What about he didn't die? Well, when we understand about the rigors of crucifixion and the tortures that preceded it, it's very difficult to think that the guy would survive. I mean, the scourging and then the crucifixion itself, there's only one account of an antiquity of a person who survived the crucifixion. In the Jewish War, written by Josephus, Book 4, Section 317, he mentions that just prior to the fall of Jerusalem, the Romans sent some mercenaries in to Jerusalem. They killed some Jews, and they wouldn't allow the Jews to be buried. It says the Jews were very upset about this because it was their custom to remove the crucified and to give them a proper burial prior to sunset. Okay? So, and Josephus mentions how he saw 3 of his friends crucified. He went to his friend, the Roman commander Titus, and asked a favor, that he remove all 3 and allow them to live. Well, Titus was a friend, and so he approved it, and he ordered that all 3 of Josephus' friends be removed immediately and provided the best medical care Rome had to offer. In spite of that, 2 of the 3 still died. So even if Jesus was removed prematurely and medically assisted, his chances of survival were almost 0. But the complicated, there is no evidence that Jesus was removed alive or provided any medical care whatsoever, much less Rome's best. And historians have to go with probability, not mere possibilities that are without a shred or scrap of evidence. So given all the evidence we have for Jesus' death for crucifixion, early sources, multiple independent sources, you have unsympathetic sources like Josephus, Tacitus, Lucian, Marbar, Serapion. Given all the evidence we have for Jesus' death by crucifixion, without any evidence to the contrary, at least equal evidence, but we don't have any. The historian, at least, who is bound to evidence, the historian must conclude that Jesus was crucified and that the process killed him. So that doesn't work, that he rose because he never died to begin with. And that only leaves us with one other option. Jesus' disciples claimed he rose from the dead. He rose, he died, he actually rose from the dead as he predicted. There you go. There's some evidence for the resurrection of Jesus on a napkin.
Followers of Christ have confident hope that has been reasonably investigated that gets stronger when tested. And that spells Christ. Thank you for joining me this time on Ready, Set, Question, where we are dedicated to building faith one question at a time. If you'd like to learn more about other topics I dive into, please visit my website at readysetquestion.com. And also, thanks so much to Ben Sound for providing the amazing music. Much love and Godspeed.